G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you enjoyed today's bloody good episode, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and look up here. Let's go. Posted by user MorbidMummy11, titled, Am I the asshole for banning my husband and father-in-law from the delivery room due to their intensely stressful and creepy behavior during my pregnancy? There's a lot of context that the character limit cuts off, but here's the gist. My husband and I are expecting our first child, which I knew would be a really sensitive issue as his own mother died in childbirth with him. We met with a marriage counselor to talk things through at the beginning, and he swears he's been seeing his own therapist twice a month throughout my pregnancy. I don't want to call him a liar, but I'm fairly sure he's either not going or not talking about the big issue. He and his father, a hugely active part of our lives, are completely convinced that I'm going to die in childbirth. They won't openly admit it, but their behavior has reached the point where it's constantly making me feel stressed and uncomfortable. When it was my husband saying, "Please make sure your life insurance is up to date," and "I'd like to meet with a lawyer and draft a will," I was like, that's kind of intense, but okay, if that makes you feel better. When my husband asked me to go through all of my possessions and inventory what I wanted to be saved for the baby versus what I would want to be returned to my family in the event of my death, I put my foot down and said absolutely not. Too morbid. No way. My father-in-law, who lives a few blocks away and eats dinner with us 2 to 4 nights a week, got on my case about how I was making things difficult for my husband in the event that he will be a grieving widower with a newborn. I'm just going to add here that I've had a completely complication-free pregnancy and have no reason to think that I will die screaming in the coming weeks. When I tell my husband this, he calls me paranoid, but I feel like my father-in-law wants me to die. His whole life identity for the past 35 years has been amazing single dad. Never dated or had close friends or even hobbies really. And it seems like he's been looking forward to being able to guide my husband through what he went through. At this point, I'd honestly be happy to never see my father-in-law again, and I certainly don't want him in the delivery room, especially since he told me that he was putting his foot down about me not being allowed to have an epidural or laughing gas. He's a commanding presence, and I know that whatever he wants in the delivery room, he will get. I know people will say, oh, L&D nurses would never let that happen, but you haven't met this man. My husband, in addition to backing his dad on everything, acts like my due date is my death date and is completely pulled away from me. Every minute with him is morbid, stressful, and a reminder that our marriage seems to be crumbling. No matter how many times I tell him his behavior makes me stressed and upset, it's just getting worse, and I do not want it around me while I'm concentrating on giving birth. Do I owe it to my husband to let him stress and upset me during labor? Is his presence at the birth more important than a safe and healthy delivery? My therapist says no, but this whole thing has been so weird, I feel like I need some outside perspective. In the comments, Seabrook SR says, not the asshole, but in my opinion, it's time to be frank. Tell him that you want to go to his next therapy appointment. Then you need to explain to the therapist what has been going on and that you are seriously considering banning your husband from the delivery room. Using the top comment to mention that not only should your husband clearly not be in the delivery room, but OP may also want to consider getting some sort of power of attorney, giving someone other than the husband the right to make medical decisions during this period. Husband is clearly not in his right mind at the moment, and I wouldn't trust him to make decisions in OP's best interest if OP is unconscious. This, not only kick them out, but make sure that you have someone who will be there with you and helping you through this, especially with the pressure you'll get from your husband, even if he isn't in the room. Your support can keep speaking for you even when you're in the heat of labor. Not the asshole. Can you employ a doula? It'd be nice for everyone if you had someone around with positive experiences of birth. Plus, they're just the nicest people ever. I completely second this. I was against a doula in the beginning when my wife mentioned it. Why do we need this white hippie witch lady in the room? What's she gonna do? A lot. Way more than I could or would have ever asked of her. She was ridiculously nice, helpful, calming, sage advice, reined in my mother-in-law who was determined to keep my wife from getting an epidural and actually got her on board with it, and so much more. I thought it was over once we had the baby, but nope. 2 months later, this wonderful woman arranged a meeting at our home, brought food from our favorite restaurant, and helped us clean and let us get some rest. Grand total, I think we paid $7.50 for her services, and this also included monthly childbirth classes leading up to the birth and prenatal yoga. She even arranged a payment plan which helped a ton. Get a doula, 7 out of 5 would recommend. Me, what the hell's a doula? White hippie witch lady. Ah, okay. They're more than just a hippie. They're there to advocate for the mother and ensure that she is kept informed of what's going on, can make informed decisions, and then make sure that the mother's decisions are heard by both staff and family instead of being steamrolled. Most women are not aware of the choices they have in their birthing healthcare, so the doula will be there to be an informed advocate as well as emotional support. Jesus effing Christ. I would not allow them in the room, but if I were you, I would consider how safe you are in this marriage, not the asshole. Dude, same. I felt terrible saying it, but I mentioned in my comment that she should be really wary during her recovery period. They sound unhinged. I thought maybe I was biased and projecting because of all the mentally unstable and manipulative people that I've come in contact with. Dude, these people want you dead. They might even go as far as to murder you in the birthing room. Are you gonna allow that to happen, OP? There is some sick, twisted fantasy going on between the father and son that they're trauma bonded together with. It's literally your father-in-law's identity. Keep those two away from you. And I know that you said that he's such a commanding presence and that he would have a say over the nurses, but I don't think you've watched enough of Nurse John's TikToks. I don't think there is a single living being that could get Nurse John to listen to them and have him take their threats seriously instead of the normal medical advice and routine support that you should be getting during an operation like that. But taking a step back from all of that, I'd seriously be considering the mental health of your husband and whether this relationship is right and healthy for you to stay in. Genuinely very concerning behavior, and if he doesn't want to get help for it, why would you stick around with someone like that continues to play into a fantasy that is detrimental to your existence? And now, onto the update. This is a long overdue update. I know I worried everyone, and I'm grateful every day for every ounce of concern that was sent my way. I'll be completely honest, I forgot the login information for my other account, and fussing about a throwaway Reddit account wasn't the highest priority in my life at the time. To get right into it, I was unfortunately right about my suspicion that my ex wasn't going to therapy. I sat down with him and very firmly put my foot down about my mother being my support person in the delivery room alongside him, and that my thankfully ex-father-in-law was not to be anywhere near the delivery room. I was also very adamant that I was getting an epidural, and ex-father-in-law had no say about any medical procedures that I may take. I also told him that I was seeking my own therapist, as his and his father's actions were worrying me. My ex-husband didn't take it well, to put it simply. I had never heard him shout at me like that, and it scared me a little bit. My fury outweighed my fear not long after, however. He told me that I didn't need a therapist, that he was just trying to be prepared. I admittedly lost my temper and told him that I wasn't going to die. It wasn't my fault that his father's trauma wormed its way into his head and that he needed to fix it without taking it out on me. He yelled at me that he didn't need therapy. That caught me a little off guard. I asked him why he went to his therapist and was given advice about my death if he felt that he didn't need it. His expression gave it away, and he caved not long after. It turns out there was no therapist. It was just his dad. During the times he was supposed to be at therapy, he was with his dad. I'm still fuming. In the end, I gave him a choice. He could either go to therapy or I was leaving. I had enough of their delusions, and he chose to refuse therapy, so I packed my things and stayed with my mother. At that point, I still wasn't planning on divorce. I'd hoped that we could possibly fix our marriage, as naive as that sounds, but my ex decided that if he couldn't convince me to go back, then he would get his father and the rest of his family to do it. I had to change my number due to the amount of harassment and vitriol that they hurled at me. In the end, it was just my mother in the delivery room as I gave birth. I'm thankful for the nursing staff. They were a godsend, and I felt safe that neither my ex nor his father would get even remotely close to the room without my say-so. The divorce is still ongoing, so I can't give too many details on that front, but I have hopes that we can work out a tentative co-parenting agreement. My ex isn't a bad father. He loves our baby girl, but our relationship is done. And as long as I live, ex-father-in-law will never be near my daughter. I'll wrap this up. I've got an adorable little toddler tugging at my leg at the moment. I'm alive, I'm happy, and I've got my baby in my arms. Life is good. In the comments, Fat Brain Cell says, I always wondered about the OG post. It was so morbid. Happy to hear that she's alive and away from those horrible men. Jesus, is this the one that people were speculating in the replies that the husband and father-in-law were planning to kill her in childbirth? I always wondered what happened. All told, this is probably the best outcome because that whole story was messed up beyond belief. You know, I thought the possibility of the father-in-law and husband planning to kill her in childbirth was a bit far-fetched, but it just seems to me that father-in-law and husband were so committed to their idea of her dying in childbirth that they probably wouldn't actively cause her death. They would embrace the chance to allow her to die by passively denying her care. And if that denied care just had her deal with pain, either chronic or acute, but not kill her, well, that's just her punishment for living. And hey, X can still be the good husband supporting his disabled wife. I'm of the opinion that any man who says their wife shouldn't have an epidural should pick from the list of things that women have reported are as painful as childbirth and subject themselves to it for 24 hours with no painkillers. Compound fracture of the femur would be an easy one for him to inflict on himself. Men like to think that we should be able to endure the pain without assistance because our bodies are made to do this, so it can't be that bad. I really did think that they were going to try and kill you, either actively or passively in that childbirth room, OP, so good job for getting the hell out of Dodge. This really is the best ending that you can hope for because your husband just revealed how mentally ill he was, how dangerous he was to your existence. If he lied all this time about going to the therapist and instead was seeing your father-in-law, what else was he lying about? There are so many more things this could have escalated to, and when it comes down to it, it really was a blessing that his mask slipped and he wasn't allowed to do further harm to you. I do hope that he wises up one day and realizes what he did wrong, but he may just be too far gone, unfortunately. Our next post is by user FewSetting4917, titled, Am I the asshole for leaving my sister's wedding early after her maid of honor humiliated me in her speech? I, 27 female, was a bride at my older sister's wedding last week. The wedding was beautiful and everything seemed perfect until the reception. During the reception, the maid of honor, who had been my sister's best friend since childhood, gave her speech. It was emotional and all, but then she made a joke about how I was the family screw-up who finally managed to do something right by not messing up my bridesmaid duties. Everyone laughed, but I didn't find it funny. For context, I've had a rough few years. I struggled with my mental health and dropped out of college for a while. I've since gotten my life back on track, but it's still a sensitive topic for me. Hearing that joke in front of all of our family and friends wasn't funny at all. My sister's best friend and I never really got along, but still I never expected something like this from her. Especially since the day wasn't about me at all, then why bring me up in the speech? I tried to stay composed, but I felt the tears coming, so I quietly left the reception and went outside to collect myself. My sister followed me out and asked me what was wrong. When I told her, she said that it was just a joke and she meant nothing bad. I tried to go back inside, but I couldn't, and I ended up leaving the wedding early. My parents understand why I was upset, but my sister is angry with me. I do feel terrible for leaving, but also feel like I had the right to feel hurt and humiliated. In the comments, not the asshole. The maid of honor was being a mean girl. Her point was to be a witch, and she was. Her speech should have been about the couple who just got married. There was no reason to bring you into her speech at all, except to be mean. Maid of honor should be ashamed of herself as she is the asshole here. Your sister not seeing this, and her words to you also make her an asshole. I'm sorry that your sister was crappy to you. Maybe show her this thread." And OP replies, "This is what I tried to tell my sister. I thought about it again, but I still can't seem to find a reason for her bringing me into her speech." You're the asshole. I bet there's another side of this story. OP says, "Every story has another side. What am I supposed to do about that? Call my sister and her best friend up for posting about her side? You think I posted on Reddit for advice without putting myself out there? Then what's the point?" Not the asshole. From the way you describe your sister's reaction, her BFF feels free to belittle you because your sister always goes along with it. I wouldn't be surprised if her maid of honor ran that joke by your sister for approval beforehand. If your sister considers insulting you in a public setting like that to be a joke, you can bet money that they have shared similar jokes between them before. The shots about taking your meds shows that your sis doesn't have a lot of empathy for your situation or respect for you as a person. I don't see her apologizing if that's the case. I could be wrong in my suspicions, but everything you describe tells me that I'm not. Not the asshole. No one wants to be the butt of a joke, and the friend should have run the speech by your sister prior. Very poor taste. Or sister did give the thumbs up on it. Not the asshole, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that. Mocking someone's mental health is bullshit in any circumstance, but in front of their whole group of family and friends? Just effing despicable. She'll just ask me if I've been skipping on my meds. Your sister sounds like she isn't a whole lot better than her asshole friend. Too bad someone else from the audience didn't yell out, "Not funny!" Oh, I'm sure there are guests that clocked this whole interaction and OP leaving. She's probably rightfully embarrassed and projecting it onto OP. If I was a guest at this wedding, my opinions of maid of honor and bride would absolutely be lowered. Back up to the post, there is an edit. I said nothing at the moment because I didn't want to cause a scene on my sister's special day. And I can't reason with her right now because she'll just ask me if I haven't been taking my meds lately. That's what she does when she's angry with me, so I'm giving her some time to maybe realize how her best friend's jokes were out of line. Edit 2. Someone asked me if my sister's best friend and I argued before, or did I give her a reason to do this? My sister's best friend and I never went past hi. She told me before, years ago, that she, in general, doesn't feel comfortable around someone struggling mentally because in her head, God only knows what they're capable of. Ever since she said this, to this day, I just try to avoid her. Your sister saying have you taken your meds yet is crazy. I would have blown up on the phone at her for that one. I'd be like, who do you think you are saying that? So what, if I didn't take my meds right now, it's completely okay for your best friend to shut me down at the wedding like that and to stomp on me? Is that a justification for that bullying in front of everyone? How is that okay? I can see here where going off like that and being extremely angry at your sister though, OP, could be considered unhinged behavior in which you're not on your meds, because that would explain why you're so angry right now. What an annoying situation where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I don't think that you're the asshole for this one. I think your sister and her friend there are gigantic pieces of shit and mean girls. And now, on to the update. Hi, thanks to everyone who took the time to comment on my post and gave their opinion and advice without being too harsh. I apologize if my update is messy or confusing. I'll try to cover everything, but I don't know when to add context for clarification. If you think there's any missing info or some parts are confusing, then let me know. The same day that I posted, my dad called to check up on me and see if my sister and I had talked things out. When I told him no, he said it's better if we talk about it now and assured me that I have nothing to apologize for. If my sister thinks that she has nothing to apologize for, then the least she can do is make her best friend apologize or fully realize that the joke was out of line. By the way, my brother and I met 4 days ago, and he told me that brother-in-law, my sister's husband, didn't like the way the maid of honor called me a screw-up in front of everyone, and some of those who laughed voiced later that they did so out of nervousness. On Monday, my sister called me to talk. When I made it to her place, her best friend was on the phone and didn't put it down for a second. My sister started by saying that just a few years ago, I would have laughed hard and not taken the joke as an insult. I told her maybe some laughed because they don't know the reason that she called me a screw-up. For context, when I was 16, something happened, and that's why I struggled mentally really badly between 16 to 18. When I was 17, I was diagnosed with PTSD and later with depression and anxiety. Since then, I don't like it when someone touches my head, especially my hair and the back of my head and neck. My sister knows everything. During our conversation, my sister did most of the talking. At some point, I felt like my sister had called me just to blame me again without trying to understand my perspective. When I tried to talk, she put her hand on the back of my neck and pulled me toward her with each sentence as if to say, "Do you understand?" or "Okay?" I hated it and felt irritated. I honestly kept thinking that if I pushed her away, would I be in the wrong? Would they just call me mental and tell my family that I got physical? I tried to leave, but she insisted that no one was leaving until we sort this out. She told her best friend to just apologize. She refused and reminded my sister that I was the reason that her husband got angry at her on their wedding day because I couldn't take a joke, and when I tried to explain why, edit, I told her if she'd focused her speech on the bride and groom, then maybe he wouldn't have had a reason to be angry. She refused to listen and brushed my words off. She said, "Yeah, whatever, sorry." I was glad that it was finally over, and as I was about to leave, I heard her say, "Can't take a joke that everyone knows is true." Both of them laughed, but my sister stopped mid-laugh and apologized. I didn't say anything and just left. I think I've had enough. I know I've had a few rough years. I dropped out of college for a while. Fine. But since I've gotten my life back on track, my parents helped me through it all and never made me feel like a burden. At first, I was on some strong meds, and that made me feel tired and sleepy most of the time. After a while, I started to feel a little better with therapy and my family's support. During that period, it was me, my parents, and my brother. My sister was 3 hours away for a job and used to visit sometimes and would often bring her best friend along with her. Looking back, I don't want to say that she hates me, but I know she felt ashamed to have a family member struggling with mental health issues. I don't know how to explain this. I've made up my mind and decided to go no contact for now. If my parents and my brother, who were there when I was going through it all, never made me feel that they're ashamed of me, then why would she? I'm still on some meds, but feel much better than before. I have a stable job, my own place, and friends who love me for who I am. I can say I'm proud of myself a little. I love my family to death and tried to maintain a relationship with my sister all these years, but I'm trying to improve myself, not constantly be reminded of what I was a few years ago. In the comments, Mental Woodpecker says, "When I was 16, something happened, and that's why I struggled mentally. My sister knows everything. When I tried to talk, she put her hand on the back of my neck and pulled me toward her with each sentence, as if to say, 'Do you understand?' or 'Okay?' This is more than enough, in my opinion, to just go no contact. She knows about the trauma you went through and blatantly weaponized it against you, and that's just disgusting and cruel. I'm sorry you had to deal with this, OP, and I'm glad that you're at a point in life where you can enforce your boundaries and appreciate how far you've come. Future reference, if you ever decide to be around or communicate with your sister, I don't think that you should be alone with her. You should be able to have a third party that also knows about your past trauma and boundaries, there to act as a witness and a mediator if she pulls that kind of shit again." OP replies, "I know, but I don't think that I'll be around her anytime soon. I'm still a little shaken by the fact that she knows everything and still grabbed me by the back of my neck to prove her point. She did it to hurt you. I'm sorry, but she was. Make sure you tell your parents this is why you were no contact." I also think that she was trying to get OP to have a negative reaction so she could twist it and say I told you so. That's some cruelty right there. Yup, I thought she was trying to get her to overreact so she can make herself a victim and get people on her side. Reminds me of reactive abuse. The relationship is over irrespective of similar genetic material. The sister is jealous, she wants to be the main character, and the girlfriend the sidekick at the expense of OP. Everybody would be happier and there would be less drama with no contact. You should never feel guilty about cutting toxic people out of your life, family or not. After all, you're in charge of your own happiness. So if she does not bring you joy, then why bother? She is an awful, horrible person anyway, so you're not missing out on much. No loss on going no contact with your sister since she thinks that your mental health issues are funny. When you roll around with pigs, you're going to get muddy. Your sister is muddy. Not the arsehole. Your sister has chosen her friend over you, she hasn't apologized, no one is taking accountability that should be. You need to go very low contact or no contact with this sister. Your parents should be covering this and really championing you. Maid of honor should be pariahed by the rest of your family. OP replies, I've decided to go no contact. I want to move on from what happened and everything she said to me before. She said a lot of hurtful things in the past, but the way that she tried to shut me up by grabbing me by the back of my neck, I just can't get over it. She doesn't love or respect me enough to not use that against me. How does the maid of honor know that this happened to her? OP says, she brought her best friend home when I was still covered in bruises. Of course, I didn't want to see anyone other than my family, but I was in no condition to voice my wants. I'm sure I left my room at least 2 to 3 times, and she saw me. Besides that, she brought her best friend along when it was better for me to not interact with anyone but family. I'm certain she told her everything. I would tell your family exactly what transpired and send your new brother-in-law a link to these posts. You've overcome so much. Keep moving forward and cut the toxic out of your life. Best wishes and many, many blessings for your future happiness and success. And OP replies, thank you. I'm going to see my parents tomorrow along with my brother. They will probably ask me how it went, and I'll tell them exactly what happened. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.